Live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Catalyst Storieroad series. Very excited for you to meet our guests today. My name is Philip Gilpin Jr. I'm the Executive Director of Catalyst, and I'll be working behind the scenes for the hour to take your questions. So for those of you watching live on YouTube and Facebook, put your questions in the chat section, and we'll get to them later on. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to our host for the hour, Miss Marilyn Suchan.
Thank you, Philip. And thank you all at home for tuning in. Oh my gosh, let me fix that. Okay, that's much better. Again, as always, I understand it's a very difficult time. Energy levels are super low. So we want these chats to give you a moment to feel some inspiration and get some juice flowing in your creative career. So I hope you enjoy our talk with these two awesome guests that I'll introduce now. First, we have Armando Salas, and he is a Cuban American cinematographer based in Los Angeles and has worked all over the world. He is the recipient of the Jacob K. Javits Fellowship in Film and winner of the ASC Robert Surtees Heritage Award for Outstanding Cinematography. His recent credits include the Sundance feature, Bitch, Netflix feature, The Most Hated Woman in America, the pilot and first season of the David E. Kelley Stephen King series, Mr. Mercedes, the Scott-free series, Strange Angel, the pilot and first season of the macro Netflix series, Raising Dion, and the second and third seasons of the Netflix series, Ozark. We also have Tommy Maddox-Upshaw, who is currently lensing the sixth season of Fox's hit series, Empire, for creator Lee Daniels and Danny Strong. He recently wrapped shooting the third season of FX's Snowfall, chronicling the crack cocaine epidemic in 1980s Los Angeles. Previously, Maddox-Upshaw shot the second season of Netflix's breakout hit On My Block and the first season of Huge in France, which was also for Netflix. Thank you both for joining me today.
Hello.
Hello. So as we were getting ready backstage, you started talking about the American Society of Cinematographers, and Tommy, you just got...
No, Armando just got in.
Armando just got in. You've been in.
Yeah, I congratulate. No, I'm not in. I just congratulate Armando, for getting in, because it's a brand new thing. It was like, it's a great thing for the career. It acknowledges all his great work, which I've watched over the years too. So, congrats to Armando.
Congratulations, Armando. And can you tell us a little bit more about how you got in this and what it all means? I haven't heard of this before.
So the ASC is like, you see certain credits, like some cinematographers have ASC after their name. So it just means that you've been invited to join the American Society of Cinematographers, which is by invitation. So you have to have sponsors. It's an incredible honor. I mean, since I was 17, I knew I was going to be a cinematographer. So I've been following cinematographers who I've kind of idolized and followed their careers and studied their work, and now to kind of join them as a peer is incredible honor. So it's the one good thing that's happened in the last 3 months.
All these years of hard work are paying off. You got your seal of approval.
Yeah. It's basically being kind of recognized by your peers, which is great, and then now as a part of the society, you're responsible to participate and to further along the technology and the art and, for future generations, which is a big responsibility.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you started off by saying you got into the industry or knew you wanted to be a cinematographer at 17. Can we go back to those times for both of you? What got you into cinematography in the industry?
I was in magnet art schools my whole life, and I loved to draw. I really, really kind of wanted to be able to manipulate reality, like a curated reality. And I did photography, I did drawing, and then I picked up a Super 8 film camera, and that was it. I was like, oh, this is it. This is the rest of my life. I knew I didn't want to direct. I knew I didn't want to produce. I knew I didn't want to write. I knew I wanted to build the image and be responsible for what you absorb as an audience member. I just didn't know what that was called yet. But that, you know, very soon thereafter, you know, discovered American Cinematographer magazine my first year in college, and then, you know, read 15 years of back issues and that was like, yeah, this is it. This is my life from here on out.
Wow. How about you, Tommy?
I literally was like, my sister was working in the business in the 90s in New York, and I went and she was doing casting. My sister was a former model, traveled the world, and then I was like, "So I want to come work on a music video," and it was like in between a summer break, and I was like, "Sure," you know, and I was a PA, and she's like, "I could get you like $120 to work on this Brandy Wanye Morris from Boys to Men music video, just picking up trash and getting yelled at," and I was like, "What does that guy do?" And at the time, I was just about to start playing college football. I went to college at College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Mass. And there's no film department there. I was like, it was like between high school and I got exposed to it. And I saw this guy named Vance Burberry, who does a lot of commercial music videos. And I think now he does like mainly underwater stuff. But I saw how he worked with the team of folks to create these great images. And I was like, I always loved photography. And I was like, I would really like to learn more about what he does, you know, and from afar, you know, like, pick up the trash over there, get us some coffee. And I'm like, sure, but what is that guy doing? You know? So it started there. And then I saw the likes of, I came back, I would travel from Boston to New York on my like breaks and try to PA or intern for as many music videos as possible between my sister and her friends. And I just kept telling everybody, I want to learn. And I was like traveling between Boston and New York and working on like hip hop videos, you know, from Tribe Called Quest, all different types of folks as a PA, and just was learning on the job because Holy Cross didn't have a film program. And I just took still photography and art history. And from there, it became a grip, then electric. And then I got in the union during my like junior year in the Grip Electric Union in Boston, Mass, called Local 41. I was the only black dude in Local 41 in like 1996 through like 2000. It was nobody. It was just me.
Oh, wow.
And I got on an opportunity because I ended up having a mentor that owned a camera house that happened to go to Holy Cross. Like, Holy Cross is not known for film. Like, all my friends are like these lawyer, stockbroker dudes, and art is like, the art department's like its own one little corridor at the school. It's not really like promoted at all, but you know, and this one mentor of mine put me on to getting a camera internship and got me in the union, and I just learned as much as I could. And then I went to the American Film Institute in 2002 through to 2004, 2005, and you know, a lot of little steps along the way, still, you know, puttering along here, but it's fun though. I love it. I mean, do it all over the world like Armando. It's great to find something that you love as a teenager and get to somebody pay you a bunch of money to travel the world and do it. It doesn't get much better than that, you know?
Yeah, it's such an amazing job that you guys have, and a big responsibility too, to step on set and be that additive part to the next episode of whatever show you're working on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, and I love that you're saying you rose through the ranks of the crew to get where you are. And Armando, it was similar. Was it similar for you in that regard?
Oh yeah. I mean, it, you know, I moved out to LA in 2002. I had received an award for a short film I shot in film school, and I thought it was gonna come out here and take over the world. And you know, it's 10 years of you know, fighting just to get a shot at something that maybe somebody will watch, you know. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, about 10 years in, like, the project started to become, you know, juicier and better, and started finding audiences. And then I moved into television when it wasn't really television anymore. You know, I don't even call it television at this point. You know, I mean, most of the time it's streaming or cable or whatever.
Right.
And it was like, you know, the new golden age where you have all these filmmakers who are really passionate about telling their stories, and they're just doing it in a longer format. Instead of 1 2 hour film, they have 8 hours or 10 or 14 or whatever it is, and it's been great. You get to really craft a look or develop a look over time, and you really get to live with it and expand it and build upon it as the story changes. So at the same time, all like the indie features that I did for 10 years was a great training ground, because they were essentially the same amount of time. The page count hasn't really changed. It's just more resources, more crew, more money, but we're still moving just as fast. So it was a great training ground.
Yeah. We had a speaker yesterday Anu Valia, who works in the comedy space, but one of our viewers had asked the question, how much time are you given for prep and shooting days on an hour-long drama? But since she's in the comedy space, she wasn't sure. Can you two answer that question off the top of your head?
Say it again. Say it one.
How many prep days do you get for the hour-longs, and then how many days of filming?
It's like 8 to 10 for me on my shows. What about you, Armando?
Same. I mean, generally I only do shows with alternating DPs, just because there's so much location work.
Uh-oh, Armando.
Oh, we lost him.
One thing I'll say about Armando, the type of shows that he's doing in my show Snowfall. Yeah. It's funny. Snowfall is still shooting. Empire is off the air. But one thing I'll say about his show, and then my other friend Eric Messerschmidt, his show, is there's a certain branch of TV of our shows that I think are visually more aggressive than most movies that even come out in the theater at this point. Like, that I think there's like more creativity on a certain branch of television when you watch something like Devs, you watch Mindhunter, especially some Stranger Thing, Ozark. I think there's like, right now, like you said, the TV golden age, there's a branch of it that's, super aggressive. That's, I think, more visually, stimulating than most things in the theater. What do you think, Armando? I was just building off of what you were saying earlier about your shows.
Yeah. Am I back? Can you guys hear me now?
You're back. We can see you now. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's basically, what I was saying before, that you have filmmakers in charge of these shows, right? And then you have studios, whether it's Netflix or a cable network or even a TV network, that are just more willing to take risks and allow the filmmakers to succeed or fail. Because it's really that fear of failure that keeps people from doing something edgy or something cool. So as long as you let the filmmakers, if you say, okay, I trust these filmmakers to make this show, and the show is, this thing, you're not homogenizing that. You're doing the best version of that thing that you can. And that's basically what filmmaking is in the theatrical world, in the theatrical space, right? Where you're just like a singular vision and you're trying to tackle it. So I've been very fortunate that that's been my experience, because I get to work on these great shows and I don't feel like I've had very little studio feedback. Like there is no one over your shoulder saying, we need more coverage, or we need more medium shots, or we need more fill light, or we need to see their eyes more, or whatever. Like, it's been scary because you really have no feedback. You're just kind of out there on the alert. And sometimes you go too far, but it's a great place to be, right? It's working with filmmakers to fulfill a vision, not some kind of homogenized version of what is going to please the most audience members.
Right.
Yeah. And how do you find yourselves with your personal taste in the way you film versus the way the show has currently been shot? How do you find yourself in between that?
I think there's a level of freedom that is going on right now. So I took over Snowfall season 3, and they let me kind of do what I wanted. So Elliot Rocket, who I share the time with, we changed the LUTs a bit, changed the lenses, cameras. I went from, they shot the Vericam season 2. They shot Alexa season 1, Very Cam season 2, season 3. I went over with Elliot to the Sony Venice, which I've been shooting since like On My Block in Hugen, France, and I just love what I can do. And I even changed the photo, the color space of the LUTs, and twisted them up because the storyline started to change. And no one really said anything. Everyone was kind of cool with it. And it worked because I justified it per the story, where the story was moving from. It went from the innocence of a kid who is getting into drugs to realizing that this drug that he's pushing is much more lucrative and starting to diminish his neighborhood. And Snowfall, I can start to make it a bit more aggressive. I can start more color mixing, and what camera can handle that mixing versus others a certain way, and because it's a LUT and twist it up. And so it's been a level of freedom thus far in my experience in this lane, and bringing what I love to do and stuff that's pleasing to me. It's been nothing but fun. I look forward to getting back to finishing the season.
Yeah, that's amazing that you feel you've had experiences where you've had so much liberty in the way you like to shoot.
Yeah. I mean, and it's different from like an Empire. So like I replaced somebody on Empire because he was going to do Coming to America. So then when I went in there, I mean, it's like the showrunner and him never really kind of lied about what the show was. It went back to what Armando was talking about. Empire is a network show. So it's like, you're only allowed like 12 cookies per sheet, and each sheet. And even the showrunner said this, and it's just like, you could put 3 chocolate chips on the cookies anywhere you want. So you could do a little something on the cookies, but there's only 12 cookies per sheet, but you could put those chocolate chips anywhere on the cookies that you would like. And if you keep it to that, I could care less, but I just need my 12 cookies per sheet as we pump out the orders to the masses. And I'm like, got it. So it was never like, you get to do what you want and pulled back. It was just like, just know what it is. There's a little bit of space, but versus a Snowfall, which is a totally different can of worms. Snowfall, you don't need coverage. It's like, we'll take somebody for 2 pages and a Steadicam walking shot, or like a side of a car rig, and just drive and just like talk and then snatch the camera off in the one, or you know what I mean? Like Empire is not that. A shot doesn't last more than like 0.4 seconds. It's just a different ball of wax. And because I wasn't lied to, I wasn't mad about it. I knew what I was getting into. I was helping somebody out. It was a great experience. But as he said, it's a different format than, the Netflix and FX and Hulu of it all.
Yeah. Armando, what were your experiences like, especially with Ozark?
So on a show like Ozark versus, let's say, Mr. Mercedes, I prepped for 5 weeks before we started shooting. I created the look of the show with the producing director. And on Ozark, I came in season 2, and it's very similar to what Tommy's saying. It's you come into this world, the world exists, you kind of absorb it, you live within that world, and then it just becomes instinctual, and then you're just making decisions like you always do, as if you created the look. And just as importantly, season 3, like if you were to watch season 3 and season 2 and season 1 in a giant, binge, it changes a lot. You just start watching season 3 now, and it's been a year since season 2 came out, and you don't go back and revisit. It's very familiar. It's the Ozark world, right? You think that not a lot has changed. You binge watch it, and it is a huge amount of difference. The show evolves because the characters evolve, the storylines evolve. It would be really boring on a script side if everything was always exactly the same. And it's the exact same thing with the look of the show. You have your language, and then you kind of build on that as you go. So season 3, we went large format. We shot on the Venice as well. We changed the lens package. We changed the LUT. We went to an HDR workflow. So and we added a grain for the first time. So there was literally not one major aspect of the decision making for the cinematography that didn't change for season 3, other than the approach to the show, to be honest to the characters, to be honest to the world that you're living in, and to basically build on the signature look of the show. So you know, it's really no different for me on season 3. The decision making and the work and the fulfillment. Had I been there season 1 to create the look, we would have deviated just as far. You know what I mean? Same way Mr. Mercedes is now on season 3. I'm imagining that the look has deviated substantially from what I set up in the pilot, because you go where the story goes, right? Otherwise, you're not really doing your job.
Right. Yeah, that was.
I like that change in season 3. By the way, I noticed it immediately on Ozark.
Yeah,
I liked it. I like the adjustment, and I could tell it was a different camera. I was like, yeah, it might be. I was like, I could see it's like the difference in the low end, and I was like, oh, I like that. I like that adjustment. And then I read that you guys shot the Venice as well. I was like, yeah. I was like, I think that was a better adjustment, especially because you guys love to live down the bottom, which I do too. So it's like, I just think the camera works in terms of being able to manipulate and do what you want, and consider how dark the story is. I mean, it's a dark story. I mean, there's nothing bright.
Very dark.
There's nothing bright about Ozark.
No.
It's justifiably good shit.
Yeah, and we went HDR as well, so that we were actually viewing in the color space that we're finishing, which is something we didn't do season 2. So now we could really play the line and know exactly where everything was, because there wasn't a guess as to how it's going to be mapped in the final color space. So I think that was successful as well. And then we also went a little bit more vintage with the lenses to help the increased sharpness of the bigger sensor. And we used live grain to take away, the electronic and super clean, high resolution image, right? Because, we're shooting at almost 6K. Super clean, very little noise. And am I back?
You're back.
Let's see if we catch up. I think
so basically,
visual and audio switched. Armando.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, it caught up. At one point, your visual and your audio were out of sync. You were told you were out of sync. So I just wanted to make sure you're back. Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
That's a post-production issue. I'm going to blame the editor. So no, just, and then added the grain to take away that electronic sharpness. But as you're watching the show, you don't go, oh my God, they're betraying the look of the show. It's still very much the show. You turn it on, you start watching, you're back into that world and that space.
Just for anybody at home who might be like me and interested in cinematography but doesn't understand all the verbiage, you were talking about, Tommy, how it was shot in the dark space. Is that what you called it?
So what I'm saying is that, like, the D-log E curve from like 8th grade, it's like there's the low end in the shadows versus the higher end on the D-log E curve, where's like the highlights. And I'm saying that this particular camera system that he and I are both using does a great job in the bottom end of the D-log E curve of exposure and even color space, where there's a lot of information down in the shadows that really wasn't present in many other camera systems. So then you can extract and manipulate the color and the exposure a bit easier in the shadow space of what the camera's capabilities are doing. So each camera has a different like D-log E curve, and this camera in particular, I love because its curve reaches a lot further than everybody else. So my cast members are, Black from African. Our lead character is African, UK, Nigerian. Then like the aunts are like light skin, brown skin. But then I have daytime exteriors, and with the D-log E curve of this camera, I'm able to hold like cloud formations along with super dark skin tones during the day. And then even at night, I can hold all that information and also see the difference in color separation of these Black folks on these night exteriors. I do a lot of night exteriors. I kill a lot of people. It's like I need to be able to see everybody and understand who pulled the gun out and like blew somebody away and why, and have that moment and linger on them and push into them from like 20 yards away and be able to still see the houses of the street while feeling it, a heightened sense of reality. And it's just like, I look for that in camera systems, and I think the Venice does a great job. I mean, I did kind of the same thing. We didn't do large format on this show. We ended up shooting like super speeds just because of like, the sharp was still kind of vintage in terms of flaring and grabbing lights and blowing things up. Which lenses did you guys use on the Venice for your show?
We had a base set of Summicrons for just for functionality of having a full set of lenses, and then we had a rehoused Leica R's, where the 35 and the 80 were really what we were using, and then a 50 millimeter Leica Noctilux, which is like super funky rehoused still lens. So the 35R and the 50 Noctilux, those two lenses were about 50% of the show. Okay. And then the other 50% is on any of 15 lenses, Right. But those were the two hero focal lengths because it's something that I tend to do anyway, which is put the camera close to the actors. And then large format, ever since Raising Dion, I've just like fallen in love with the format. That show was on the Alexa LF. I can put the camera on a portrait lens, like a 35, 40, or 50, and get close to the actors and get, let's say the shot that I'm in right now, right? But it's that size shot, but it has the field of view in large format of like a 25. Yeah. Or a 32 or whatever. It's much, much wider, 25% wider. So you don't beat up the actors with a wide angle lens, but you get a wide angle field of view and you get the shallow depth of field. So you get this really immersive 3D environment. Like you feel like you're there with them inside the action, inside the dialogue. And I don't mean action like necessarily like running around. I mean like husband and wife are arguing with each other. You're there, you're present, you're an active participant, inside that conversation. And it's very three-dimensional versus pulling a stage wall and having 2 or 3 cameras back with long lenses. Yeah, which gives you lots of space to move around and places to put cameras. But all of a sudden, you're a voyeur looking in on a flattened space, So obviously, we use long lenses every once in a while, especially motivated by you're on a 35 millimeter up close, an actor, they're looking at something really far away. You go to a 135 of what they're looking at. The language is very clear what's happening. You're with this character. They're looking at something over there. So it's something that, because Ozark, most of it is treated as a single camera show, even when we're using 2 cameras, it's like, these are both 8 camera shots. They both need to be perfect. We don't know which one's going to be on screen longer, right? And if we can't do that, then we just shoot with 1 camera. And so you're able to put the camera where you want it. You're not compromising, like, oh, I need to fit another angle in here or whatever. And same thing on Raising Dion. So I've always tended towards wide lenses, and now I can do that without distorting, a very rectilinear image that's very pleasant on faces, and still very immersive. I mean, it's not I don't make the same choice for every job, you break down every script and you talk to the director or the producer or whoever is in charge of guiding the look of that particular show. But instinctively, I want to be closer to the actors. I want to be in there with them, not further away as an observer,
Yeah, no, I totally get it, man. Actor participant is always better cinema,
Yeah, but we're also in this time now where drones are more affordable than ever for creators out there to use. So how do you balance the grand shots but let's focus on the actor and what the importance of the scene is?
It's all about script. You always try to go back to the director and say, what is the honest moment of the script at this point? And I think there's just, we pull from old cinema, and I think sometimes there's just stuff you just can't beat. I mean, Fincher does a great job. I was watching Seven recently, and there's like some gorgeous walk and talks and Day Exterior Rain in the beginning where Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt are talking. and they just stay in the 2-shot. And then Brad Pitt do-si-dos over to the other side. So we're moving, and then he's creating movement within the switching sides as stuff is being revealed about Brad Pitt's past. And it's like those moments, one lens on a tracking shot was the most honest of the moment versus when, Morgan Freeman's going into the library stacks and they use more different coverage and they're going through the stacks and they're using long lenses to juxtapose the guys watching him and him searching through the library itself. It's what's most honest to the moment. What is most honest to is the drone shot the most honest thing? I think Ozark, you guys did a great job on my show. We rarely use, we use the drone for like when we go to crash a house or something because we want to set up the housing project and then we want to see, as SWAT teams move in, and then I'll have the drone do a grab and then walk inside, but that's only honest for that moment for what my story is versus Ozark is out in the woods, man. And it's like this whole, drug cartel in the woods and people moving. And, that I love that scene where you guys did, where the bus where it goes bad. And these guys made great use of the drone where they saw a massacre happen because a rival cartel came over during a drop, but it was like, it was appropriate use. It was incorporated in the story. It was justified. Like it worked. If you're honest to the moment, honest to the story, then, fucking use the drone, but it shouldn't be used just because you got it. I'm not that guy. That's not good filmmaking in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example on Ozark. That is not even exciting. It's like we have the Casino season 3, right? Mm-hmm. The casino is a boat casino.
Yeah.
It's docked against the building. The building has restaurants and passageways. On the other side of the building, you have a parking lot. Okay. And if you look at the building from the parking lot, it just looks like a building. If you look at the boat from the water, it just looks like a boat. Like understanding what this space is almost impossible. For us, we understand it because we're going through it nonstop. We've seen every inch of it, right? So, but we have a scene in I can't remember if it's 7 or 8, which episode, but or 9, where someone's coming to the casino to kill somebody else that's just gotten to the casino, and they're moving through that space. Mm-hmm. And so, just very perfunctory is how does the audience know where everything is if we don't refresh their memory? So there's a case where take a drone up, you can see the parking lot, you can see the building, you can see the intermediate structure, and you can see the boat. And now we can fly over that. And then you can where someone's waiting in a parking lot, and then somebody's cutting through the practical location and somebody else is moving through and there's crowds in between, and then someone's in the intermediate part where the buildings are to a security camera angle. And now we're on stage on the casino build and they're looking at the security camera angle, and you understand the geography.
Right.
And the only way to really do that was to get on a drone. Now, it wasn't, there was nothing necessarily particularly artful about that shot. It's just that, how do we show this space? And if there was another way to do it, I would have probably done it that way because it's more, it's more in with the actors. So instead, what we do is we find, okay, here's this end of this sequence and this other sequence is about to begin. So let's get this moment of respite for the audience. And we're just going to casually fly over the casino, and you don't realize it's laying the groundwork for the next sequence that's about to happen. But it's very important. Otherwise, the audience is just like, where is that guy? And who is, like, where are they in this chain of events?
Yeah.
And even sometimes, to his point, I just saw a short film. I was talking to the cinematographer, and they didn't have a lot of money. And sometimes what you don't show may be better for what the story is. And it's like one of those things. Like, just you got to be honest. Like, to her, she was like, "What can I have done better?" I said, "Because you didn't have the money, and the people were taken with by a coyote in Mexico. Like somebody crossed them across the border, and then they get lost." I was like, maybe not having wide vista shots because you really couldn't afford it and making the audience lost is most appropriate because the family was in that emotional space. You know what I mean? So it's always a matter of what's honest, and because you have it doesn't mean you have to use it. It can be to
Right.
your advantage. It's like that's something that's those are the discussions you should be having with the director and writer about what is really honest. Is it to know where you are, or is it better to not at that moment?
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned Armando giving the audience respite as they're watching. Is there a rule of thumb that goes through both of your heads when you're thinking of your shots for the audience to have that break, or can you elaborate on that more?
No, I mean, I think like every other decision, so you're in a collaboration with the director, obviously, for a shot. And some directors are very, very hands-on in terms of shot structure and shot listing, and this is what I want. And the DP is there to help service that and to execute it and make sure it's still within the language of the show. And other directors are much more, this is what's important to me, and I'm going to craft the performances around these central beats, and then you'll help me figure out how to shoot it, right? But regardless, you're looking at the pacing of the script, and you're looking at the scenes, and you're just doing the exercise of checking off all the boxes of what's important about the scene, whose perspective is it, why does this scene exist, why is this in the script? Okay, that's why it's in the script. So how do we get to that essence? Is this supposed to be in one shot, or or do we need 30 shots to tell this story? Like the idea that you just show up and you do like a master, and then this person talks, and then that person talks, and that person talks. That's not really in my
right.
Nature at all. Like the idea of just coverage for coverage sake. So if this is a scene about this one character digesting all this information, you might start behind them with the person who's talking out of focus and just being on the back of the head, and then wrapping around slowly while you're getting all this perfunctory story information. But now you're with your main character as they're ingesting that information and processing it. And that's the scene. Like that could be the scene. That's the shot, because you figured out this is what's important. It could just as easily be a scene where there's 20 shots of that actor's POV looking at all these bits and pieces in the room, because he's gathering clues that are opposite to what the person is actually saying. So the words are not the reality, and you're showing that, right? So it's it's cinema, right? So the camera is a tool to help tell the story, along with the actors' performances, along with, if you think about all the laborers that go into pulling this off, it all then has to be funneled through the lens, right? And captured. And so your responsibility to capture the best version of that. And that doesn't necessarily mean the coolest or the prettiest or whatever. It means, being true to the scene and to the overall story.
Yeah. Thank you. This is a very inspiring chat, because I think a lot of people think you have to do it a certain way, like you're saying, the wide shot, the close up, and so on. But if you look at it the way you're saying, for what's most important in the story, it'll just open up different creative ideas.
Yeah, and the wide shot could be the close up, right? It's wide. Right. Actor crosses down stage. They're in a big close up. They turn around. You hinge the camera. You get the other person's reaction, and there you had a wide, a close up, and an over the shoulder in one shot. Because it's a collaboration. It's like the director, the actors, the DP, the camera operator, the dolly grip. Like you part of what we do is manage all of these things so that they function together, and so that it just looks like it happens naturally. And so when it works well, it should be effortless. You should I've done shots where I'm really happy at how much work went into it to look like we did nothing. You know what I mean? Like, we just showed up at this location that had the right amount of practicals and shot it at the right time of day, and we just pointed the camera and it was done. Whereas it was weeks of planning and the rigging team executing and the shooting crew and all this finesse to make it look like it was kismet, and so there's like, oh yeah, you got really lucky there because it just kind of fell into place. And it's like, you know, half of you is like wanting to strangle that person because you're like, you have no idea how much work I put into that. And the other half of you is like, that's a great compliment because it means that we succeeded, right? We made it look like this just happened on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's always the best thing. I mean, when you can have that oneer that really plays out and everybody kind of feels it. You know, I did that season 3 where we had like 3 actors come from a porch, get to a car, have a bunch of juxtaposition all in the pullback of a Steadicam. And then after like a page and a half, close to 2 pages, then we cut to the POV with the Rialto rig where you separate the camera and you stick it in the trunk. And when they open up the trunk door, the back trunk, we just played it out from the POV from where the money was. And you could see the 3 of them in the frame finishing the conversation that started off. And then upon closing the trunk door, you know, I just had the Steadicam guy just stay, Xavier, and then we just pulled him all the way back on the porch. And like, you know, it made the trailers for like the whole season. But it was one of those things, the performances were so great, but it was so easy. But the thing is that we're a period piece being shot in 2020 when this happened 38 years ago. So, you know, one of the big things about our audience is that, you know, they want to see old school Los Angeles, inner city, you know, the hood. So it's like it's before things had changed and people have fences up because the crack pandemic that inflicted upon the inner city didn't have the violence. Neighborhoods didn't have the violence, you know, just yet. So it's all a matter of like, what can we duck and dodge? Which way can I go that has the most houses that are still kind of period that art department has enough money to address as I hinge around and get over here and then this perspective and then pull it back. And where do we have our fake, you know, lamp poles versus the real ones that are further back? And like you said, when it feels effortless, that's when, you know, you've like, as the DP, done the right, because you have to talk to everybody. I got to talk to transpo, art department, production designer, and then convince the director and everybody else. Not really convince them on that show, but to like, we can make this happen and more or less like 2 shots. You know, it's fun. I mean, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah. It sounds like a thrill, like an adrenaline rush when you're in the moment of it.
Yeah, it totally is. It totally is. And when the actors feel it and they know the performance worked and they know they're not got to go ping, 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 all these different sizes and you let them do their thing in their element, it does nothing but jazzes everybody up that like, yo, we got a great take. Like it fucking worked. You know, it's like,
That's amazing.
This is why we do it. You know?
Yeah.
No
well, I do see
anymore, so
no high fives, no handshakes, nothing. I do see that namaste from far away. But we do have a ton of questions coming in for you too, so I'd love to hop on over to that and get to as many as we can. All right, so this first one is from Din. Question: of all the incredible tools needed to create cinema, which tools would you consider as the most powerful aspect of creating the look of a show? Camera body, lenses, lighting, color correction, camera movement, your sensibilities, etc.
I say, I mean, it's something that we touched on. I feel the camera giving me the freedom to take it wherever I want to. You know, that's why I'm a big proponent of the Sony Venice. I feel I have more space to do whatever I would like to in post and to set up a certain type of like visual language. And sometimes being restricted by certain cameras, it could be an aesthetic choice, but for the most part, I love the freedom that I have with the camera system because I don't need much light in all different types of scenarios, at least for myself. I don't know. What do you think?
You know, it's once you get, if you have a little bit of money, just a little bit of money, right? Like you're going to have some tools. And so it's really, for me, it's all about the creative decision making. So like if you're making a 28 days later,
right,
and you're on a DV cam with this garbage amount of latitude because that's the right choice for that movie, or you want, you know, you're going to be a very small movie, but you're out in nature with somebody who's very isolated, and and scope is really important, right? I mean, I think, again, it comes back to the conversation that we had before about what it is that you're trying to do with every scene and with the script as a whole, as you kind of thread those decisions together. So for me, in a vacuum, it's very hard to answer that question. You can do a lot with very little lighting if you plan everything out and shoot scenes at the right time of day. So you might have to trade your lighting budget for having more time and more energy around shooting. We can shoot in this room near these windows from 3 to 5:30, and if the director and the producer and everybody and are willing to work together to do that, I'm willing to trade away 90% of the lighting package, as long as we all have that commitment to not fight the lighting of any location or any set or any indoor or outdoor location. So I feel like, having come up in the indie world where we were always begging, borrowing, and pleading for anything, you can do really cool and edgy things, and you can use the limitations to your advantage as long as you kind of, keep the right attitude and really plow away at each of those decisions. In an ideal world, you have all the money you want to choose the best camera, the best lenses, the best lighting package for each job based on that job's requirements. But it's really hard to choose kind of in a vacuum. And of course, color correction and your finishing is a huge deal. I mean, it's like a photographer who would, no photographer that anyone admires hands off their printing to somebody else, right? Like they're gonna manipulate that print versus whether it's the old days of photochemical and dodging and burning, or whether now it's in a digital environment. That is the finishing touches. That is all of your intent minus all the sacrifices you had to make on set because of time, money, loss of location, bad weather, whatever it is. You're gonna need that time at the end to help where you couldn't on a day.
Yeah, and that's why it's very important to understand what your imaging capture device and between celluloid and digital chip, what its limitations and expanse. And because like I said, because the body I've been using lately, I feel that if I am limited with my time and what I can bring, because I'm doing 2 to 3 location moves a day on Snowfall, like sometimes you do 3 moves a day. I don't know if that's going to happen anymore, but we used to. It's like, how fast can I get up, and what's the easiest route to get to the point I need to get to finish this story moment? You know what I mean? So that's why I say the camera body, but it doesn't matter what your image capturing device is, as long as you understand the limitations of it and within your box, how you best can move within your box of limitations to be honest to the voice of the script.
Awesome. I took myself off the screen because it cuts off your head a little there when the question's showing. So we'll go to the next one, Philip. Okay. Question: do you storyboard all of your shots? If yes, what's that process like for you?
For me, no. Only big action stuff. Only if it's a humongous action scene do I kind of request storyboards, just so we understand coverage and just about what the moment is and how many pieces of the moment we actually really need. But for the most part, story-wise, I don't really ever use storyboards to, just for action and VFX, especially understanding what the VFX backgrounds possibly are is very important to have storyboards, so then we can understand how much of a build versus coverage and the way to get around it. What do you think, Armando?
Yeah, same here. The storyboards generally are, you have a complicated sequence, and this little bit is underwater in a tank on stage. This little bit is on location. This little bit is CG, and then everyone needs to be on the same page so that you can properly budget and break it down. Now, I've worked with directors like Ben Wheatley on Strange Angel, who comes from a feature, the feature world, and he draws a storyboard for every frame, and he doodles it himself. You know what I mean? And then he'll talk to me, and we'll refine the shots, and we'll go to the location, and I'll take stills with my camera, and we'll work out the shots, and then he'll go back and cross a bunch of them out and then redraw them. And it's interesting because he tries to do everything in a oneer, and yet he still draws it all out, because it's like he has an interesting approach where there's like a metrodome, right? Each scene has its own metrodome. And so this scene may be like a slower one, or this scene might be a little bit quicker. And if there's not something happening on each of those beats, the oneer falls apart. So he'll draw it all out. So, like this metrodome requires this much action in each of these beats. And so we'll do this complicated oneer with 10 people talking through a space as the camera moves through it. It's all been choreographed. And then he'll watch it back, and count it off in his head and be like, you see that moment there as the cigarette came in, and before we got to that part, it fell apart there. There was a lag. So that arm needs to come in while that person's still talking, so that the camera can start moving before that other, and we overlap the dialogue with that other bit. So now that's his process. Some directors will shot list everything, even, not storyboards, but everything shot listed. And other directors are just like, we'll just talk to you about what they want to accomplish. You guys talk, we talk it out. And then I might I have everything digital now. So I'm on an iPad, and I'll basically embed a little diagram of the set on that page that shows dolly shot over here, techno crane over there, and like a cutaway over here. And that way I remember, as you're doing, I attempt to shoot a lot of things in 2-block episodes. So it's like 20 to 22 days of shooting. And so there's also the same amount of prep. So it might be 30 days from the time you prep something to the time you shot something. So it is really important to, have some kind of notes for you to refresh your memory each day. But as far as like polished storyboards from an illustrator, that's more for like bigger sequences, like Tommy was saying.
Gotcha. Amazing. All right, we'll do the next one, Philip. Will you do backup coverage to give you more options?
No.
Do you have time for backup coverage?
On only show that we kind of did that was Empire. But that's what that show was. That's the whole analogy of the cookies of it all. But for the most part, even then, I was like, let's just move on. Like, there's no point of getting two mediums along with the tight. It's like, it's just no. And, but my other shows I've done now, there's no such thing as like backup coverage. That's you're killing yourself with time, and then you're hinging on performances that are going to be watered down, and then you get, you're milking cats,
Sounds dangerous for the cats.
Yeah. The cats being everybody on set who are be pulling their hair out because we're sitting here on the same piece of dialogue for 3 hours. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just
I would say, like, if we're doing a oneer or something that's a little risky, like, is this going to work? And sometimes you do it and you're like, oh yeah, that's 100% going to work. You shoot it, you play back, you watch it, you've got 3 amazing takes of it, and you're like, you know what? Next location, we're done here. Other times you go, that works. That does work, but the scene before this had this kind of pacing, the scene after this had this kind of pacing. I think we should just protect ourselves with a reverse back or with this other piece in case I need to tighten it up or use the beginning of one shot and the end of another shot I need something to cut to. So in those cases, you get a safety kind of a shot, but not safety coverage, not like, it's more like, it's not like, oh, we need a profile and a 3/4 and a close-up and a medium shot, and that way we can put whatever words in their mouths we want later. I mean, that's not really the kind of shows that I work on, thankfully. So it's really just the director and myself or a producer or whoever saying, we better protect ourselves here and get one other angle or a cutaway or something in case this runs too long or it doesn't work for whatever reason.
A lot of times it's like, for me, when that comes up, it's like, let's just grab a wide of the scene so they can jump time and space back into the one, or if they have to collapse it, or from the front end or the back end, or even to, it's one of those things I've been known to be like, all right, CYA, let's go ahead and let's do a wide of it, just so then you can chop the head or the tail of the one, or if you have to, something like that.
Right. Perfect. We have 2 more, so let's go on to the next one. New cinematographers often try to make shots look clean. Is that the right goal, or should the story and characters drive the look of a show instead, even if that means it looks a little less polished?
The second.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the best example is a movie he brought up, 28 Days Later. I mean, look at that movie. It's a great movie. It's shot on mini DV, but it's appropriate for the story. It's Danny Boyle's a great filmmaker, and Anthony Dodd Mantle, I think, shot it. And it's one of those things that, we should, take a lesson from, because I think it's a great movie. That's my thoughts on it. I agree with Armando. Go for the lesser,
Right. Yeah, it sounds like it goes back to what you both were saying before. What is going to serve the story the most?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's all about story.
Yeah.
All about story. If you can justify it via what this script emotionally is, then then you can make some really creative decisions and cut some corners, as long as it's story justified.
Right. Perfect. We have one last question before our time is up. How much of being a DP is about raw artistic talent, and how much is technical training and knowledge? Ooh.
Armando, go ahead. The ASC's like mission statement here. Let's hear it.
So, there's a lot of, if this is back to the cookie sheet, like there's a lot of missing ingredients here, because you need to have a foundation of technical knowledge. Otherwise, you're going to be having to have everyone else deal with everything for you, and you're not able to push the medium because you're not even know what it's capable of. You're only taking other people's word for it, right? Whether that's lighting, workflows, cameras, lensing, whatever. Artistic ability, maybe like the smallest percentage of what we do. I mean, you want to have prepared and have managed the day and managed the crew and done the foundational stuff so well that you actually do have that bandwidth left for artistic ability and for creativity and for taking that thing one step further, and then even one more, and all of a sudden it went from something that was satisfactory to something that was like really an example of excellence for that scene or show or whatever. But it's interesting when I was first starting out and I thought what the job was compared to what it really is. I mean, you are middle management, okay, and you have a lot of responsibility in terms of time management and budget management, and you have to keep all of these personalities functioning, and you have to collaborate with all these different departments. If you didn't do the proper collaboration with art department, with location, with the Teamsters, with the set dresser, with hair and makeup, you're going to get to that scene and you might have had this incredible idea of how you were going to light it, and it falls apart because the costume doesn't work with the set, and the sheens are wrong. The practicals are not where you want them to be. You didn't do the proper installation. Like, there is no amount of artistry at that moment that's going to dig you out of that hole from lack of preparation. So it's really this kind of big, unwieldy, you show up on a set and it looks like either nothing's happening or it's complete and utter chaos, right? And being able to kind of constantly manage that to get to the point of where you're happy with the photography is a lot of moving parts. So I think that both of those things are equally important, but it's just a small pie of like a much bigger, ingredient list.
Yeah. I mean, the managing, you're really like the biggest manager on the set. It's like you and like the AD and the production manager or line producer are the biggest managers of so much. And for me, it's, all the hard work is done in prep, like you said, like, because if I have interesting stuff, if there's opportunities given to me by the production designer, it makes my job a lot easier, but that stuff has to be talked about way before 60 folks show up on the set itself. And, Thomas Voth, who I work with on Snowfall, is absolutely an amazing production designer because he leaves all these opportunities. It's like, I grew up and played football into college. And it's like, if you got offensive linemen that can make multiple holes for you for the cutback, it's great. Like, yeah, I understood the hole was here, but if like your offensive line is that good that, everybody's like able to like what's called step down and make an opportunity just in case something doesn't work. But that comes in the prep of everybody knowing how to play with one another. Take what's the easiest opportunity to make, to get us a first down. You know what I mean? It's not always about throwing a 40-yard ball. It's about like, a couple of 5-yard passes and all of a sudden it's a first down. We keep moving the ball. And it's the same thing on set. What's the fastest way I can get up and what's going to be honest to what the moment is, and I can get us going. And by that point, if I understand in prep what we're really trying to go after, then on one part of the scene, or one scene could be a 1, or the next part is like a 3-hander, in which case we'll do a 2 and a 1, figure out something kind of interesting. I could transition us in the next scene. Then if I have that understanding of all this stuff during prep and I plan it out and I make sure there's multiple opportunities in order to achieve what the end goal is, then it's going to be it's got to be a fun time. It's got to be honest to what the script is. And then I get to manage everybody and let them know what's up next because I've done the homework. Like I'm about having fun on set because hopefully I've done my work when I've been alone at 2 a.m. in my house and not have to talk to anybody and figure out stuff that I can present to the director and upon which we, spit it out to everybody else at the one-liner meeting, or during the week as we're prepping.
Yeah. Yeah, so lots of prep. Failure to prepare is preparing to fail. So you are just making sure all your I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Right, because things change.
Right.
So if you don't have a great prep and you guys are not honest to what the moment is during the prep the whole time, then you're not going to be flexible because you don't, as a cinematographer, you got to be able to switch it up quick. Like a quarterback, like you got to call audible and still get the first down and still score and still understand time management. Like,
right.
We have to make an adjustment, but we still gotta move the ball.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Which is fun.
Yeah. It's a very fun job that you both have.
Yeah, definitely.
We used to have.
Exactly.
I'm using some law of attraction, Armando. I believe it's coming back to you right now.
God, I hope so. Yeah.
I hope so. Well, we went over quite a bit here. So thank you both for your patience and answering all of our audience's questions. We'll wrap it up there for today. Everyone at home, I hope that was very inspirational for you, and let us know in the comments what other kinds of questions you might have for future webinars with these two. But thanks again for watching, everyone. Enjoy your weekend, and thank you both for joining me.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.